all they probably do is squeal, but chill. When we start the revolution, when we start the revolution, all they probably do is squeal, but chill.
Was not to work for white folk, but to work for ourselves and to create jobs for ourselves and to create wealth for ourselves. How different the content of courses would be that we take and so forth. You say, it's not about lowering standards. It's not about changing standards and the way these people talk about it. You say, it's about building up the appropriate standard. It's not about unequal education. It's about what? Appropriate education. It's about looking at the goals of your nation and looking at the goals of your community and deciding what kind of education you need in order to achieve those goals. But the kind of education we're getting today has the goal of working for white people and forever being a white man's servant and slave in some form or another. And therefore we get a servant's education and a slave's education. And when he has no need for further servants or slaves, he doesn't educate us at all. And that's what's going on at this point. Because now he's hiring across the world. Now he imports the workers that he needs. And consequently, he's disinvesting the education of black people in America. And consequently, if you do not engage in the education of yourself and determine what your education is, if we are not engaging our children to make their own job and to make their own world, we are not going to be around much longer as a people. This is what this is about. So then how does this man falsify the consciousness of our people? Falsify it in three ways, Benji. You can falsify it by giving people false contents, false history, false knowledge, irrelevant knowledge. You see, since we said that consciousness contains that, doesn't it? Yes. So even if you can think well, even if you have the capacity for great logical thinking and analytical thinking, if you are using and applying those thinking processes to false information, you're still going to come out to a false end. Okay? And so therefore, one of the first ways our consciousness is falsified is that we fill our minds with irrelevant knowledge or no knowledge at all, or false knowledge, false beliefs, false wishes, all kinds of fantasies. We're going to live together in a raceless world. We're going to live together in the classless world. Negroes sitting around waiting for the classless society to occur. Waiting around when all people are going to live as one. You keep waiting. You won't be here to see it. Oh, we may get a raceless society one day, but you might not be one of the races enjoying it. Yeah. But when you have that kind of fantasy, and that fantasy fills your head, when you think that the thing that's going to solve all the problems is that people love one another. You know, that they respect one another. You get a lot of preaching on Negroes on that behalf. Some of these public intellectuals. We must respect the humanity in each other. What the hell does that mean? How does that feed anybody? How does that employ anybody? You got some Negroes who engage in magical thinking. They think that if they teach their children to love all people, you know, I don't teach my children about color. I teach them to love and respect all people. And not to see color. Well, that's nice. No, that's wonderful. But tell me that this, are the other people teaching their children? Huh? How is teaching your child this going to protect it against the people who hate you? Do you think by teaching yourself this, by some magic osmosis, other people are going to achieve the same consciousness? You're out of your mind. And yet we get something like people who think that. So they sit around the weakest of people, the most downtrodden of people, teaching their people how to love their enemies. And then wonder why they catch hell at every turn. Yeah, you can do that if you're willing to be dead and let people just run over you to the end. And if someone has convinced you that that's the essence of religious life, fine, it's all right. But I'm telling you, you see, we got a lot of people who are caught up in that thing. So therefore, our masters will put that kind of religion into us, you see, and they will see that as the essence of religion. I've told you many times that the major problem out here, the reason why our children are where they are, is the result of law-abiding, church-going Negroes. Yeah. And it's not the children and the youth who are the greatest criminal threat to the black community. It's law-abiding Negroes. It's Negroes who believe this white propaganda and this falsified religion. Yeah, who can't see color, and therefore they can't see their own colored children. Yeah. Who in their efforts to be sanctimonious and good create evil. Yeah, because someone told them being good is giving these other people who got more money than they know what to do with their money while they rob their own children. And then they wonder why they fear them as they walk down the streets. Who told them love means giving the Koreans all of your money and supporting their children and keeping them out of crime while you're on the street and you need the jobs and the need of being cared for. But someone has convinced you that love means to ignore your own children and love someone else's children better than your own. And you feel holy, you feel good when you do it. Someone has made you feel guilty when you concentrate your attention on your own children. Someone has told you to love everybody. And you're so busy loving everybody, you can't get around to loving yourself. You can't get around to loving your own. How is it that people filled with self-hatred and have not come to love themselves can appropriately love any other people? And yet we are asking the very people who've been most psychologically abused and destroyed to carry the whole world on their shoulders and to become the universal saviors of mankind. We got some joke out here talking about the universal values of Islam. That save the world. The Arabs don't need you to save them, Negro. The Chinese is not asking for a Negro to come over there and save China. The Frenchman is not asking Negroes to come over there and save them. Why did you get into this business? It's your business to save the world. And that's why you can't do anything for yourself, because you're too busy doing it for everybody else. You're too busy loving everybody. You can't even see the love that your own people need and your own children need. And you can't see that your people need more love than any other people here on earth. Yeah. Let me tell you something. Before you save the universe, before you slave and love all people, love your next door neighbor. Save a black neighborhood. Save black people. And if you can demonstrate that you can save black people, that you can save your next door neighbor, that you can save your family, that you can save your son, then maybe the world will be ready to listen to you and ask you your help. But you got a bunch of Negroes who walk around here and haven't demonstrated that capacity to save anybody. And are talking about universal love, and we're talking about universal values. What the hell does that mean? And they're supposed to be superior to somebody who's committed their lives to African people. Come on. Who say, well, I see this people, and I'm a person of finite capacity. I cannot save everybody at once. And therefore, I will save this or try to administer this. But you're supposed to feel guilty because you decided to save people. The most religious person is the person who gives charity to those who are most in need of it. And when you look at the people who are most in need and the youngsters who are most in need of charity, they're your own children. And therefore, if you're going to be truly religious, you will be most charitable to your own at this point.
Sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. But you see, if you're not capable of discrimination, if you can't see color, you can't see the need. You see? And if someone has convinced you that being religious is being blind, then you can't see the need, and you can't see it's your own children, your own people who need your wealth most. That you will help the world and bring peace into the world. The degree to which you spend your money with these black children and black people, to that degree you will bring peace to America. Yes. You're ready to accept the idea that we are causing and we are disturbing the peace. You're ready to accept the idea that we are the major threat in America. You're ready to accept the idea that black men are irresponsible and black boys are the terror of the world. Then why aren't you ready to accept the idea that they need your help most of all? You see, but you can only discriminate in a backwards way. And because you discriminate backwardly, or because you don't discriminate at all, and someone has told you that means that you're religious and you're sanctimonious, that means you're ignoring people who are in need, and that means you can't discriminate between people who don't need your money and people who do, which means that ultimately you end up enriching the rich and impoverishing the poor, and the poor then, as they react to the impoverishment with crime and other kinds of things, then create and disturb the peace and destroy the peace, and that means that in your goodness, you're actually creating sin.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. But see, that's the way a white man runs it on you. You watch the good Negro. The good Negro is a supporter of everybody else but himself. The good Negro impoverishes his own mind and his own people. The good Negro accepts poverty as being an ongoing characteristic of black people, and wealth being that of other people. Yes, yes. And it's turned around. We have tremendous amounts of wealth, people, in both mind and body and material wealth. You see these white boys running to China over there trying to get that money? Well, China only has about $500 billion to spend. How much money do you think we have to spend? We have $400 billion. Yeah, we got money. We got about as much money as the Mexicans, as much money as the Canadians. That's many nations. That's to spend. If we looked at what we earn, that's only a fraction of what we produce, which means that we as African people are producing trillions of dollars worth of wealth. You see? Because an employer only pays you a fraction of what you produce, right? So we're getting $400 billion through earnings. Think how much wealth we must be what we must be producing. And we're not producing it for ourselves. Do you know a nation that has a $1 trillion economy would be one of the wealthiest nations in this world? You'd be in the rank of Japan and European nations with that kind of productivity. But we see ourselves as impoverished. And we see our children doing the things they do out there. Why? Because we have misdefined the good. We have let some people put the wrong contents in our consciousness and in our mind. We've learned irrelevant knowledge and call it higher education. We've gone to schools and paid $20,000 and $30,000 a year to be made ignorant and stupid and to be called being highly educated. Yes, we think that people who live off of us and suck our bloods are going to give us the kind of knowledge that would allow us to close our veins to them. That's crazy. The other way you falsify consciousness, and so you see it here in newer schools, you see it all over, the missing of content. It's not enough just to fill children with knowledge. You got to fill them with knowledge that's relevant. It's got to be appropriate. It's got to be appropriate to solving their problem. And you got to know what your problem is. And you got to know that this educational system here is designed to get black people to solve white folks' problem. Okay? Now, if you're going to get an appropriate education for your children in Newark, you've got to look at your problem. You got to look at the problem of African people. And if you see the problem of African people as poverty in America, being under the oppression of white people in America, being under the oppression of white people in the world, if you see Africans going hungry above their natural wealth, if you see us, look, that's our problem. That's not the problem of Europeans. An appropriate education then will prepare you to do what? Solve those problems. If you see a problem in the fact that we are not producing enough employment for ourselves, or we are not even producing employment for ourselves, then an appropriate education teaches you what? How to create jobs for self. That's what it's about. You don't give a hoot about what the other people call education. It's pointless. It doesn't matter. Let them get rid of this garbage they're teaching in these schools out here. Yes, because what you're learning must have a reason for being learned. And you got to look at that reason first to know if what you're learning is appropriate. And then I don't think it's appropriate that black people learn only to serve white folk and to depend on white folk for their lives and for their protection and security. And yet, that's the essence of the education we're getting at here today. And consequently, we're going to get the kind of knowledge that's going to keep us dependent, that keeps us servants, that keeps us operating on the assumption that we cannot do for self, that keeps us in a position where we just give away and throw away our wealth and impoverish our own children, such that they turn around and kill us in the streets and kill themselves as well. That's how this thing is falsified then. And you see, this is only be done when a small group, which really, you got so many poor people in the world until if they stood up in a rank, they can just run over rich people and take everything they got. Why don't they? Because they fill their minds with ignorance, with false ideologies, with false knowledge, with irrelevant knowledge, such that they're not capable of doing it. That's the position we are in. The African population is second in size only to China. There's no reason why we should even be talking about small business administration. That's right. We think small. If our businesses were proportionate to our population in the world, we should have some of the biggest businesses in the world. But we are letting our own authors be sold to us by white publishers. Talking about black literature, published by Macmillan and published by, and so forth. And they're going to, these people are representing black people and black aesthetics. How are you going to be in the black aesthetics and black values and speaking real white people and you're enriching white publishers and white folk? Let's be real now. We got that kind of thing. And this is what we got going out here. This kind of game going on. Teaching white children. We got some jokers now who call themselves going to advise black leaders and provide alternatives. Teaching at white universities, and that's their reason that they receive the attention. You know what I call them? They're just black academic manners. They're breastfeeding white children and the children of the wealthy. They think they can then come down and lecture to black people about how to run their lives. Get the hell out of here. And yeah, we fall for it. We fall for this nonsense. But that's what happens. The other means by which then our consciousness is falsified, as I've indicated, is by impairing our capacities to think.